"You shot my dog," Marcus said, voice steady but low, the kind that made the air freeze. "And now you want me to calm down?" The two officers flinched, guns still drawn, the smell of gunpowder hanging between them and the man kneeling on the sidewalk. Echo, the German shepherd, lay trembling, a dark patch spreading across the concrete beneath him. Marcus's jaw locked, his breathing shallow but controlled. His words came out like a warning he'd already written in stone. "You're both dead men." The neighborhood fell silent. Even the birds seemed to stop mid-air. "Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here." Now, back to Marcus Dean. The morning had been quiet blue sky, trimmed lawns, sprinklers whispering down the street. Marcus walked Echo the same route he'd taken for 3 years straight. No uniform, no badges, just a man and his dog. But in this neighborhood, a black man in plain clothes still looked like a question mark no one wanted answered. The squad car appeared out of nowhere. 2 white officers stepped out fast, hands already hovering near their holsters. "Sir, this area is restricted. We got a report of a suspicious individual with a large dog." Marcus stopped. "Suspicious?" he asked. "That's my house right there." One officer, a younger one with a fresh buzz cut, narrowed his eyes. "Mind showing some ID?" Marcus reached slowly into his pocket, calm as stone. "Easy," the older cop barked. "Keep your hands where I can see them." Echo tensed. The dog wasn't aggressive, just alert, sensing something ugly in the tone. Then came the snap, a gunshot that shattered the morning. Echo dropped instantly, legs kicking weakly on the pavement. "No!" Marcus's scream ripped through the street. He dropped to his knees beside the dog, hands trembling, blood pooling under his fingers. The younger cop muttered, "He was coming at me." "No," Marcus said through his teeth. "You came at him." His voice didn't rise, but something behind his eyes shifted discipline, calculation, fury locked behind training. Neighbors began to peek through blinds, one woman pulling out her phone, filming. The officers stepped back, uneasy now that the scene had witnesses. "Sir, calm down," one said. "Calm," Marcus whispered, eyes on Echo. "That was my partner." The cop scoffed. "Partner?" Marcus raised his head slowly. His posture was military, spine straight, movements measured. "Yeah," he said, "partner." He stood, blood on his hands, and for the first time both officers felt the wrongness settle in. "Get down!" one shouted, but Marcus didn't move. His voice came quiet, surgical. "You just made a mistake you can't take back." He tapped a small button on the side of his watch. Somewhere, a line connected. "This is Phantom 1, he said low. Code Gray confirmed. The words meant nothing to the cops, but the authority in his tone wasn't something you could fake. "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" the older one demanded. Marcus looked at them, his calm so complete it scared them more than anger ever could. "It means you've got about 5 minutes before you find out who you just shot at," Echo whimpered. Marcus crouched again, whispering something the camera microphones couldn't catch, his hands steady on the dog's fur. Behind him, a few neighbors were out now, phones raised, whispering words like overkill, racial profiling, wrong house. The officers' radios crackled, dispatch asking for confirmation. "Possible armed suspect," one officer reported, voice tight. Marcus exhaled, a sound between heartbreak and restraint. He rose slowly, eyes locked on theirs. "You think my skin makes me a threat," he said. "You have no idea what a real threat looks like." The younger officer shifted, finger trembling near the trigger. Marcus didn't blink. He just stared through him like he was already gone. The camera phones caught everything, the badge, the gun, the silence after a single mistake that would change everything. And for the first time that morning, it wasn't Marcus who looked dangerous. It was the truth. The sound of distant sirens began to build, faint at first, then growing louder. Marcus did not move. His palms were still stained with Echo's blood. Around him, the street shimmered under the midday heat, the kind of heat that made colors too bright and tempers too short. The two officers exchanged nervous glances. The older one, Sergeant Blake, tried to sound firm. "Sir, you are being detained for obstructing an investigation." Marcus looked up slowly, eyes calm but unreadable. "You shot an unarmed dog on private property. You might want to rethink who is being detained." Blake stiffened. "You cannot talk to me like that." Marcus tilted his head slightly, not in defiance but in disbelief. "After what you just did, you should be on your knees apologizing." The younger officer, Daniels, shifted his weight, trying to justify himself. The dog lunged. "I had no choice." Marcus's tone was controlled, every word deliberate. He barked once. You panicked. That is the difference between training and fear. A few more neighbors came outside, drawn by the sound. Phones were raised again. Someone whispered, "They shot his dog for barking?" A teenage boy muttered to his father, "This is messed up." The father replied quietly, "Keep recording." The sirens stopped at the end of the block. A third patrol car pulled up, the lights still flashing. A female officer stepped out, her face tense but focused. "What do we have here?" she asked. Blake answered quickly. "Possible suspect. Non-compliant. African-American male. Dog attacked my partner." She looked past him, seeing Marcus kneeling beside the animal. "That dog?" Her voice had an edge of disbelief. "That dog looks trained, not violent." Marcus stood, the heat waves rising off the pavement between them. "He was trained," he said, "to protect life, not take it." She studied him for a moment. Something about his composure made her hesitate. "Sir, can you confirm your address?" He pointed at the mailbox 20 feet away. "2 doors down, that is my home." She frowned. "Did you give them reason to draw weapons?" Marcus almost smiled. "Existing while black in a white neighborhood. That is reason enough, apparently." She glanced at Blake, who shifted uncomfortably. "Is that true?" she asked. He avoided her eyes. He reached for his pocket. "To show identification," Marcus said. "That is what you asked for." The tension thickened. Somewhere behind the row of houses, a dog barked and stopped. Marcus's phone vibrated in his hand. A single message glowed on the screen. "Gray line active. Units en route." He slid the phone into his pocket. "You are making this worse for yourself," Blake warned. "No," Marcus replied evenly. "I am just letting you finish the hole you are digging." The female officer's radio crackled. A dispatcher's voice came through. "Hold position. Federal contact inbound. Repeat, hold position." Blake frowned. "Federal contact? What the hell does that mean?" Marcus said nothing. He crouched beside Echo again, whispering something soft and private. His hand brushed the dog's collar, a military-grade tag engraved with the number K-147. The female officer noticed it. "That tag," she said quietly. "Is this a service dog?" Marcus looked up. He was more than that. She took a step back, the realization dawning slowly. "Are you military?" Blake scoffed. "Do not let him play you, Ramirez. He is just making things up." But Ramirez kept her eyes on Marcus. "Answer the question." Marcus straightened. His presence filled the space, not with volume, but with gravity. "Let us just say you called the wrong man a threat." Blake's face reddened. "You think some war story is going to save you?" Marcus exhaled through his nose, calm. "No, but the truth will." 2 unmarked SUVs turned the corner, black paint reflecting the afternoon glare. The neighbors murmured. Blake cursed under his breath. "What is this?" The vehicle stopped behind the patrol cars. 4 men and 1 woman stepped out, all wearing tactical polos, earpieces glinting. Ramirez's hand went to her weapon, then hesitated. The lead agent flashed a badge that caught the sun like a blade. "Department of Defense," he said. "Stand down." Blake's mouth opened, then closed. The agent walked straight to Marcus. "Captain Dean," he said with respect, "we got your signal." The neighborhood froze. Marcus nodded once. "Good timing." The agent looked at the officers. "You 2 just assaulted a decorated Delta Force operative on his own property." The words hit harder than any shout. Blake stepped back, paling. "This cannot be real." Ramirez lowered her weapon, whispering, "Oh my God." Marcus crouched again, lifting Echo gently. "He is still breathing," he said. The agent nodded. "We have a medic on standby." As they carried the dog toward the SUV, Marcus turned to the officers. His tone never changed. "You wanted to see a suspect. Now you are looking at your commanding officer's nightmare." Blake tried to speak, but no words came. The camera phones captured everything. The uniforms, the shock, the sudden reversal of power. The story that had begun as another neighborhood complaint was no longer about noise or trespassing. It was about truth meeting arrogance in daylight. And for the first time since the gun went off, silence finally sounded like justice. The air was still thick with disbelief as the Department of Defense team surrounded the scene. The lead agent, Special Operations Director Aaron Cole, spoke into his radio with a voice that left no room for misunderstanding. "Medical unit, move in. Civilian perimeter secured." 2 medics stepped forward and lifted Echo gently onto a stretcher, covering the dog's body with a tan blanket marked with a military insignia. Marcus followed beside them, his expression composed but unreadable. The neighbors stood frozen, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. Sergeant Blake, pale and shaking, finally broke the silence. "Wait a minute, this is ridiculous. How are we supposed to know who he is? He did not identify himself." Cole turned toward him slowly. "That is not how this works, Sergeant. You do not get to shoot first and ask names later." Blake started to argue, but Cole cut him off. "This man served under federal covert command for nearly 2 decades. He trained your SWAT instructors. He taught half the policies you are violating right now." The younger officer Daniels swallowed hard. "We did not know, sir." "We thought," Marcus interrupted quietly, his voice carrying more authority than a shout ever could. "You thought wrong. You thought the way you were trained to think. Black man, big dog, must be trouble." His tone was measured, controlled, but it hit harder than anger. "Every day, you write people's lives in stereotypes and call it procedure." Ramirez, the female officer who had stayed mostly quiet, looked between Marcus and her partners. "Captain Dean," she said softly, "I am sorry. This is not right." Marcus glanced at her, recognizing sincerity but not absolution. "Apologies do not bring back trust, or life." Echo whimpered faintly from the stretcher, and Marcus followed the sound instinctively. Cole spoke again, now to the patrol officers. "Hand over your weapons." Blake hesitated. "What? No way. We followed protocol." "Protocol?" Cole stepped closer, his tone dropping lower, sharper. "Your body cameras were live. We already pulled the footage. You shot a service animal without warning and detained its handler without probable cause. You are done talking." Blake's face flushed with panic as another agent relieved him of his weapon. "You cannot just take my badge." Cole looked him dead in the eye. "We just did." Marcus stood silent as the 2 officers were escorted toward a separate SUV. Daniels tried to speak, maybe to defend himself, but Marcus did not look at him. Instead, he walked to where Echo lay. The medic looked up. "He is still breathing, Captain. It is a through-and-through wound, but he will need surgery." Marcus nodded once. "Do it." Cole approached him quietly. "We can take you back to the base, sir. There will be questions, media, fallout." Marcus exhaled. "Let them come. People need to see what they are protecting when they stay silent." Cole nodded, then turned to the agents. "Contain the scene. No press near the victim's house. Get statements from witnesses." He faced Marcus again. "You want to say something to them before we clear it?" Marcus looked at the growing crowd of neighbors, phones still raised but faces changed. The fear was gone. Shame had taken its place. "Yeah," Marcus said. He walked to the middle of the street, his voice steady and clear. "This morning they said I looked suspicious. Now they see a uniform they can respect. That is the problem. Respect should not depend on fabric or rank. It should depend on truth." The crowd stayed silent. A child whispered, "He is a hero." Marcus did not smile. "Heroes bleed too," he said softly. He turned back to Cole. "Make sure those officers are processed properly. No favors, no protection." "Understood," Cole replied. Ramirez hesitated, then took a deep breath. "Captain Dean, for what it is worth, I will file my own report. They need to hear it from someone in uniform." Marcus studied her for a moment, then nodded. "That is how change starts. One honest report at a time." Cole's radio crackled again. "Sir, Internal Affairs is requesting immediate access to the footage. Send it," Cole ordered. He turned to Marcus. "They will spin this however they want. Be ready." Marcus's gaze shifted toward Echo's stretcher as it was lifted into the back of the SUV. "I have been ready my whole life." Cole lowered his head in respect. "We will escort you home once we secure the area." Marcus nodded and glanced toward the crowd one last time. "If you film this, do not delete it," he said. "Do not let this become another story buried under paperwork." His words landed heavy and true. As the vehicles began to pull away, the neighborhood that once looked so perfect felt stripped bare. The manicured lawns, the white fences, the calm, all of it was just camouflage for the truth that had been bleeding in plain sight. For the first time that day, Marcus allowed himself a breath that did not taste like restraint. The camera caught his final words before the door closed. "Justice is not noise, it is proof. And today, proof has a pulse." The following hours moved like a quiet storm. By sunset, the once peaceful suburb was lined with black SUVs and marked police cruisers. A soft hum of radios filled the air as the Department of Defense agents completed their reports. Marcus stood near the back of his property, the golden light cutting through the fence and washing over the grass still stained where Echo had fallen. Cole approached with a folder in hand. "Captain Dean," he said carefully, The local precinct has been notified that the officers involved are now under federal review. Internal Affairs is taking over. But you should know the police union is already preparing a statement. Marcus did not turn around. Let them, he said quietly. They can draft all the statements they want. The video speaks for itself. Cole exhaled, his tone cautious. The footage from the witnesses is already spreading online. It will be national by morning. Marcus nodded slightly, still watching the fading light. Good. Maybe that means fewer dogs get shot for walking in the wrong neighborhood. Cole did not respond. Instead, he handed Marcus a tablet. Echo is stable. Surgery went well. He will make it. Marcus's hand tightened just slightly, then relaxed. That is the first good news all day. Cole hesitated. You sure you do not want to head back to base? We can have security posted here overnight. Marcus shook his head. No, this is my home. I built a life here because I believed it was safe. Leaving now would prove them right. Cole gave a small nod of respect. Understood, sir. He turned to leave, but Marcus's voice stopped him. Aaron, he said, calling him by his first name for the first time. Cole paused. You ever wonder how many times something like this happens without cameras? Cole looked down. Every day, he said. That is why we keep serving, hoping it changes. Marcus's voice lowered. Serving does not change it. Truth does. Cole nodded once more, then walked away, his boots crunching on the gravel. The night settled heavy. Across the street, a few porch lights flicked on, but the usual small talk between neighbors was gone. No laughter, no kids on bikes, just silence wrapped around guilt. Marcus walked to his porch, sat down on the top step, and pulled out his phone. The notifications were endless tags, comments, headlines already forming. He opened one clip and saw himself on screen, calm, controlled, his voice steady as chaos unfolded. The caption read, Delta Force hero profiled in own neighborhood. He let it play once, then locked the screen and set the phone beside him. He did not feel like a hero. He felt like a man tired of proving his humanity. A familiar voice broke the silence. Captain Dean? It was Ramirez, the female officer from earlier. She stood near the sidewalk, out of uniform now, wearing a plain gray sweatshirt. Marcus looked up, surprised but guarded. You are off duty, he said. You should be home. She nodded. I could not go home without saying something. I filed my report already. I told them everything I saw, everything they did. Marcus's expression stayed neutral. That will not make you popular at your station. She half smiled. I did not become a cop to be popular. He studied her for a moment, then nodded. Then you are what the badge was meant to represent. She took a cautious step closer. If you do not mind me asking, why stay calm through all of it? You could have fought back. Marcus's eyes drifted toward the street, where faint sirens echoed from another district. Because I have learned that the loudest person in the room usually loses. I was trained to win wars quietly. Ramirez's voice softened. You should not have to fight at home. Marcus sighed. Tell that to every veteran who comes back to the same country that doubts his right to stand on his own street. Ramirez lowered her gaze. I wish I could change it. You can, Marcus said. You just did. She looked up, meeting his eyes. For a brief moment, the silence between them felt like something new understanding. Good night, Captain, she said finally. Marcus nodded. Good night, officer. She turned and walked back toward her car, her shadow stretching long under the streetlights. When she was gone, Marcus leaned back against the step, his shoulders heavy but steady. In the distance, he could hear Echo barking weakly from the vet's mobile unit parked down the block. He smiled faintly, exhaustion softening the edge of his jaw. We made it, partner, he whispered. Then his phone buzzed again, this time a secure call. He answered, his tone shifting back to command. Dean here. A familiar voice on the other end spoke firmly. Captain, Pentagon wants a full statement by morning. They are asking if you will go public. Marcus looked at the quiet houses, the silent fences, and the glowing screens still recording from behind curtains. Yes, he said. If they want the truth, I will give it to them, unfiltered. As he hung up, the camera that had been filming from across the street zoomed in one last time. His face was calm, his posture strong, his eyes steady on the horizon. This is not just my fight, he murmured to no one in particular. This is the country's mirror. The night closed in, but the story was only beginning. By the next morning, Marcus Dean's face was everywhere. The footage had gone viral overnight. News anchors repeated the same words with different tones. Decorated Delta Force veteran wrongfully targeted by local police. Hashtags flooded the internet, and the phrase "Echo deserved better" trended across every platform. Marcus sat at his kitchen table, still in the same plain black shirt he had worn the day before, the early light spilling across a half-empty coffee cup. His phone rang constantly calls from reporters, politicians, and strangers who wanted to show support. But he ignored them all, until one name appeared on the screen. Aaron Cole, he answered on the second ring. "Go ahead," Marcus said. Cole's voice was steady but carried weight. "Captain, the Pentagon has confirmed your clearance to speak publicly. They want you to issue an official statement. The President's office will release one right after." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "That quick?" Cole replied. "The country is watching. They have to move fast." Marcus stood, staring out the window toward the street where the shooting had happened. The chalk marks were still visible on the pavement, faint reminders of a truth that no headline could soften. "I will not give them a speech," Marcus said. "I will give them the truth." Cole hesitated. "They expect a calm, diplomatic message, Marcus. You know how this works." "No," Marcus said firmly. "That is the problem. Everyone knows how this works." Cole exhaled. "Then say it your way. But be ready for the backlash." "Backlash," Marcus repeated quietly. "I have been living in it my whole life." He hung up and walked outside. The street was already filled with news vans. Cameras turned as he stepped out. Calm, collected, his posture as straight as a soldier on parade. A young journalist approached, microphone trembling slightly in her hand. "Captain Dean, how do you feel knowing that millions are calling this a turning point?" Marcus met her eyes. "A turning point only matters if people stop turning away." The crowd hushed, the click of camera shutters echoing in the distance. "What happened here," Marcus continued, "is not new. It is just recorded. But recording is not justice. Accountability is." A murmur rippled through the crowd. He stepped closer, voice even but strong. "I fought for this country on foreign soil. I saw what hate looks like when it wears a uniform and calls itself duty. I came home, hoping that uniform would protect me too. Yesterday, it did not." His words hit the air like a slow-moving storm. "This is not about me. This is about what happens when fear is taught before understanding. When someone looks like me, they do not see a citizen. They see a threat." He paused. "And that has to end." From the corner, Ramirez stood quietly watching. She had refused to wear her badge that day. As Marcus finished speaking, she called out, "Captain Dean!" He turned toward her. She walked forward and raised her voice so the cameras could hear. "For what it is worth, I am sorry. And I am staying on record to make sure they cannot bury this." Marcus gave her a slow nod. "Then make sure your record has room for the truth, not just the parts that make the department look clean." She nodded, tears welling, but she did not look away. The press began shouting questions, but Marcus simply turned and started walking back toward his house. Every movement was deliberate, calm, heavy with the power of silence. Cole appeared near the gate, having just arrived. "You know they will twist this," Cole said. "They will say you hate law enforcement." Marcus stopped beside him. "I do not hate law enforcement," he said. "I hate cowardice in uniform. There is a difference." Cole gave a faint smile. "The White House will not like that line." "They are not the ones bleeding on the sidewalk," Marcus replied. He opened the gate and looked back at the crowd once more. "You cannot fix a system by whispering to it. Sometimes it needs to be confronted." The cameras kept rolling as he stepped inside, the door closing behind him. Inside the house, the silence felt heavier than before. He sat back down, opening his laptop. A message from the Pentagon was waiting. Press conference scheduled at 2 p.m. full national coverage. He stared at it for a long moment, then clicked reply. "I will speak, but I will not read your script." Outside, the murmurs grew louder as reporters speculated. But Marcus stayed still, eyes closed for a moment, hearing Echo's weak bark in his memory. When he opened them again, his resolve was complete. "You shot at silence," he whispered to himself. "Now silence will answer back." By the time the sun reached its peak, the world was already waiting. The press conference was set outside the Pentagon, a sea of microphones, flashing cameras, and restless voices filling the courtyard. Marcus Dean stood behind the podium, wearing a simple black suit with no medals, no rank displayed. Only his presence carried weight. The air felt electric, tense, expectant. Beside him stood Aaron Cole, silent, his arms folded. Reporters shouted questions before the event even began. But Marcus raised one hand and the noise stopped almost instantly. His voice, when it came, was steady and unhurried. "Yesterday, 2 officers fired their weapons without cause. They saw my skin, not my service. They saw a dog and assumed a weapon. They saw a man in pain and assumed aggression. The flashes went off faster, catching the flicker of controlled emotion behind his calm expression. "I have served this country for 20 years," he continued. "I fought wars that most people only see on screens. I came home believing in peace, in fairness, in the promise that the flag I defended would protect me too. Yesterday reminded me that belief is not the same as reality." He paused, scanning the crowd. "This is not just about race. It is about responsibility. We give people power, but we do not teach them restraint. We train them to respond, but not to recognize." His words rippled through the air like a slow-moving current. A reporter from one of the major networks raised her hand. "Captain Dean, do you forgive the officers?" Marcus looked directly at her, his gaze unwavering. "Forgiveness is not the same as forgetting. Forgiveness means acknowledging change. They have shown none yet." Another reporter called out, "Do you believe this incident will lead to reform?" Marcus sighed softly. "Reform is not a word. It is an action. And if this country wants change, it needs to stop hiring fear and calling it law." Cole shifted slightly, watching Marcus speak without notes, without hesitation. The crowd was silent except for the faint hum of recording equipment. Marcus leaned slightly forward. "I want to make something clear. I do not hate law enforcement. I hate the version of it that confuses control with courage. I hate when a badge becomes a mirror for prejudice instead of a shield for protection." The words hung heavy, unflinching. He continued, "There are good officers out there, men and women who serve with integrity, who stand against bias even when it costs them. But they cannot fix what leadership refuses to confront. That is why I am standing here, because silence protects no one." Cameras zoomed in close, capturing the faint sheen of exhaustion on his face. He took a breath and looked directly into the sea of lenses. "My dog Echo is alive. He is recovering. He was trained to protect life, and he did. He gave me time to survive the moment they decided I was not human enough to question first." A murmur swept through the reporters and someone whispered, "He is going off script." Marcus smiled faintly. "There is no script for truth." He looked to the edge of the crowd where Ramirez stood among civilians, her uniform jacket folded over one arm. She met his eyes, giving a small, steady nod. Marcus returned it with quiet respect before turning back to the microphones. "This is not a story about a soldier," he said. "It is a story about a system that forgot how to see people, a system that keeps mistaking skin for danger and silence for weakness." He straightened his posture, every inch the leader he had been trained to be. "Yesterday I stayed calm because I knew panic was what they wanted. They needed me to fit their narrative. I refused. My silence was not surrender. It was strategy." Reporters scribbled furiously as he delivered his final words. "To everyone watching, remember this. Justice is not an emotion. It is evidence. If you want to honor those who serve, start by holding accountable those who dishonor the uniform." Cole stepped forward, signaling the end of the statement, but Marcus remained still for a beat longer, letting the moment breathe. Then he walked away from the podium, past the cameras, past the questions, past the noise. As he moved through the crowd, people began to clap. Not loud, not chaotic, just steady. Ramirez joined. Others followed, and soon the entire courtyard echoed with slow applause. Marcus did not look back. The truth had already spoken for itself. Hours after the press conference ended, the footage had already reached every corner of the country. News outlets replayed his words in loops, while social media turned his calm defiance into a symbol. Across the Pentagon lobby, screens streamed live coverage of analysts, debating whether Marcus Dean had gone too far or simply told the truth everyone else avoided. Marcus sat in a quiet conference room with Aaron Cole, the hum of the building's ventilation the only sound between them. Cole finally spoke. "You just shook the entire chain of command." Marcus did not look up from his phone. Then maybe it needed to be shaken. Cole sighed. "The Pentagon is under pressure. Some officials want to frame this as a local incident. They think your statement was too political." Marcus placed the phone face down on the table. "Speaking about justice is only political to people who benefit from silence." Cole leaned forward. "They are worried, Marcus. You went off script. You called out the system directly." Marcus's voice stayed low. "The system is exactly who needed to hear it." The door opened. Ramirez stepped in, now officially reassigned as liaison between local law enforcement and federal review. She carried a tablet. "Captain Dean," she said, "the footage from the officer's body cameras has been released. It confirms everything. No aggression, no threat. They have both been suspended indefinitely. Marcus exhaled through his nose, a faint trace of relief mixed with sorrow. Justice delayed is still better than justice denied. Ramirez nodded. The department issued a statement. They are calling it a tragic misunderstanding. Marcus stood slowly, straightening his jacket. Misunderstanding? He repeated. That is what they call every act of discrimination when they run out of excuses. He walked toward the window overlooking the Pentagon courtyard, where a small group of reporters still waited. Let them call it what they want, he said quietly. History will call it what it was. Ramirez looked at him with a mix of respect and quiet awe. You realize, Captain, people are seeing you as the face of something bigger now. Marcus's expression softened, his voice almost a whisper. Then they need to understand this face did not appear overnight. It was built from years of being doubted, dismissed, and disciplined for existing in the wrong skin. He turned back to her. If they see me as strength, good. But I want them to remember strength is just pain that learned how to stand. Cole nodded slowly. You know this is not over. Marcus gave a half smile. It never is. But now, at least, the world is watching. 2 days later, Marcus Dean returned home. The streets were quieter now, though the scars of what had happened still lingered like shadows across the pavement. The press had finally retreated, leaving behind wilted flowers and handwritten notes on his gate. Echo had been discharged from surgery that morning. The dog limped slightly, a patch of fur shaved where the wound had been treated, but his eyes were bright, alive. Marcus knelt beside him in the yard, rubbing the side of his neck gently. You did good, he said softly. You did what they could not show restraint. Echo leaned against his leg, the bond between them unspoken but strong. From across the street, Ramirez approached, dressed in plain clothes again. He looks strong, she said. Marcus nodded. Stronger than most people I know. She smiled faintly. There is news, she said. The officers submitted their resignations this morning. Internal Affairs accepted them. Marcus looked at her for a moment, then back at Echo. Resignation is easy. Accountability is harder. Ramirez's tone softened. The Department of Justice has opened an inquiry into the precinct's training standards. They cited your case as precedent. Marcus exhaled, slow but steady. Good. Maybe that means this will not just end with me. He stood and looked around the neighborhood, the same lawns, the same fences, but they seemed different now, smaller somehow. Change starts small, Ramirez said. Marcus looked at her and replied, so does rot. She nodded silently, understanding the weight of that truth. He placed his hand on Echo's collar and faced the horizon. They wanted to define me by fear, he said, but all they did was remind me who I am. The sun dipped low, casting a warm light over the street. For the first time in days, the silence did not feel heavy. It felt earned. Weeks later, the world had moved on, but Marcus Dean's name remained a symbol whispered in classrooms, offices, and training rooms across the country. The footage of that day became mandatory viewing for new law enforcement recruits under a new policy titled the Dean Directive, focused on restraint, recognition, and accountability. Marcus never sought fame, and he did not give interviews. He spent his mornings walking Echo through the same street where everything had changed, greeting neighbors who now looked at him with the respect that should have always been there. One afternoon, a boy on a bicycle stopped at the edge of his driveway and asked, "Mr. Dean, are you really a hero?" Marcus looked down, a quiet smile forming. "No," he said. "I am just someone who refused to stay quiet." The boy nodded and rode away, leaving Marcus standing in the soft light of evening. Echo barked once, tail wagging, the air calm again. Marcus looked toward the horizon, his voice low but clear. Justice does not shout. It stands. The camera pulled back slowly, the house, the man, and his dog framed against the fading sun, a picture of peace reclaimed, of dignity restored, of power that needed no permission to exist.